Hello and welcome back to Football-Oranje, your home of Dutch football. It is time for an Eredivisie season preview podcast. New season's upon us. I know lots of you have been waiting for this. Who's going to finish top? Who's going to finish bottom? Much else besides. All that to look forward to in this bumper Eredivisie season preview podcast. I'm Michael Statham, joined by Mike Bell. Both of us are ready for the new season on Football-Oranje. Much more to come, of course, on our website, on our YouTube channel, and on our social media platforms. So yeah, get following, get involved, get commenting below. What does your table look like? Who do you think will win the league? We are going to share our table predictions, of course, a little later, but we will begin with the top of the table. Let's get straight into it. And Mike, we have just come into this actually, having watched Feyenoord against PSV and Johan Cruijff as like a first indicator of the new season. Let's talk about Feyenoord, the Eredivisie champions, and I believe the favourites, just about the bookmakers, to win the league again this season. What have you made of their summer, and what do you make of their chances again this season?
I think they've had a very good summer. I think that you had to worry that Swat was going to go. I think that him staying is a massive bonus. They've lost Kovacic, and they're probably going to lose Gertruida, possibly before the end of the summer window. But I think they've strengthened well, keeping Jimenez there, selling Danilo for as much money as they got him, and then bringing in Ueda seems like a great swap. And their midfield, they've brought in Zaruki, Stengs, I think two very good signings. And I think that, they might have lost tonight and they didn't exactly play very well, but I think give it a couple of weeks into the season, I think they'll be firing all cylinders again. And I think I agree that they are going into the season as the favourites to win the trophy again, because I think that they are the most settled and probably have the strongest squad out of anyone in the top four.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And whilst I know in this podcast we will disagree with some elements of it, we are super geeky when it comes to this league. And I think when you look at all of the outfits in the top five, Feyenoord just do look the strongest. They have, in fact, improved this team, which did so well last season. And the biggest factor has got to be Arne Slot, hasn't it? That he is the best coach in this division. And even though there are some talented managers now, in Peter Bosz at PSV has done well in the league before, but I do think that Slot with his team again will go on strength to strength. The only thing that could be a factor in this won't be necessarily injuries, because they've got such a good squad and don't rely on one player in particular, which is a great strength for theirs. Could be the Champions League. If they go, let's say, into the last 16 or whatever in that competition, that could have an impact in a top three, which I think is quite close, or will be quite close. We'll talk about Ajax a bit later. But in terms of playing squad, though, they have definitely improved on that. The attack in particular is stronger. And now it's just a case of keeping those players out. I mean, we're recording this at the beginning of August. There's a whole month, really, of the transfer window to go. They could lose a player or two, but it's not looking likely, is it? So, got to be the favourites.
Yeah, I think that Gertruida is probably the only one that's going to go. I think there was a lot of rumours around Benfica and Jimenez if they sold Ramos to PSG, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen. He signed his new deal. I think him staying is a massive boost, because I think he'll kick on. I think he had a good season last year, but I think that even if you're looking at who's going to be the top goal scorer in the league, you're looking at Jimenez, and I think that bringing in someone like Ueda for a club record fee will only kick him on more, because he thinks now that he's actually got some competition. Because as much as Danilo was a good Eredivisie striker, I think that it was made pretty clear in the second half of the season that Jimenez was number one. But somebody else arriving for big money might challenge him to push forward. He's had a good summer. I think he won a trophy with Mexico. So a lot of expectations on him coming into the season. I think that if you look at the list of strikers in the league, you'd probably say that he's possibly the best striker in the league. So I think that the Feyenoord go into the season pretty happy with their summer, and I think they'll look at across their rivals in Amsterdam. I'm sure we'll get into, and some of our fans will be quite happy with what's going on over there.
Yes, certainly. Just before we do, just a quick note on Calvin Stengs coming back to the league. We talked about him a lot at Football-Oranje before with AZ Alkmaar, Dutch national team on the periphery of that. Coming back to Feyenoord, do you think he has the potential to kick on under the guidance of Arne Slot? Sounds quite positive. Or do you think he's still going to be someone that never quite hit the heights we expected of him?
sadly, I don't think he's ever going to be the player that he first burst onto the scene with AZ, where he was taking on everyone, running down the right wing, looking like Arjen Robben, cutting inside, shooting, looking like probably one of the best wingers that Netherlands have produced in years. But that's because he's had horrific injury after horrific injury. It's changed his game. He doesn't have the pace anymore. But it seems that he's been converted last year by Antwerp into a number 10 attacking midfielder. And that's where he played today. He played, through the middle. And he does look good. He's got creativity there. You can pick a pass. So I think you can kick on this season. I think that this is a big year for him, playing for a coach that he knows well, and a side that's playing in the Champions League. Is expected to go in for the title. If he's going to get back into the reckoning in the Dutch national team, then yeah, this is the year for him to do it. And I like things. I've not been in the camp that said that he's lost it and he's past it. He's not very good. I think he can come good again. So yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do in this Feyenoord team.
So that's Feyenoord, I think, covered there, and we will be talking about every single team in the Eredivisie in this show. I think we should talk about PSV next because they finished second last season and Dutch Cup winners in the Johan Cruijffschaal. They did beat Feyenoord. We're still optimistic that Feyenoord will win the league. Of course, we will share our table predictions a little later. But PSV have lost a number of players, I think. I count good 7 players that were in that first team squad last season and only really inserted a couple into that. Noah Long, Ricardo Pepe, 2 good players to add to the striker forward line. But I think, to be honest, out of the players I lost, Xavi Simons obviously stands out. Creativity, goals, but a lot of them good players, but not great. I won't say mediocre, but I do think PSV can do better. They're still holding on to a couple of players I did think would move on and might still do so this month. Sangare for one. But it's good to see Joey Veerman sort of taking a step up again. He seems to be up for the new season. But the biggest thing, of course, is that Peter Bosz has taken charge as manager. I don't think many people rate him outside of the Eredivisie because they did not too aware maybe the work he did in the league. But then also, if you've watched him in a couple of other countries, you can see why he's not quite so highly rated anymore. But I think there's something going for him coming back to PSV. And if anyone's going to dethrone Feyenoord, I think it's going to be PSV. They have, I think, a very good starting 11. I think if a few injuries happen, they'll be struggling a little bit more. I'm not quite sure yet if they have quite enough goals to overpower teams when they're struggling sometimes, especially away from home. But Noah Lang, again, is a good addition. Yes, I just think they're still having the same problems as last season because defensively, I wonder whether an extra player could be added there just to strengthen it. But Olivier Buscaglia coming back from injury, that is going to be like a new transfer in itself because he's class, I think. I think he's well above the Eredivisie, really, in terms of what he can achieve. So he'll have a really good season. But yeah, talk to him, Mike. What do you think about PSV?
Yeah, I think the PSV, probably a caveat that they're a club that's still got a lot to do in the transfer window, I think. I think they're going to go out and sign 2 or 3 more players. And as you say, I think Sangare is going to go, whether that's to Nottingham Forest or another club that comes into them in the next couple of weeks. We'll see. But what they have done is add 2 really good players in Noah Lang and Pepe. I think that, for me, what I saw tonight from them was that they're going to be very fun to watch attacking wise. I think that's what Bosz is known for, kamikaze attacking football. Defensively, whether he can sustain that over a season and keep out the goals at the other end, which he's not been able to do in any position that he's had in his career so far. And it's why he's lost so many jobs, is because defensively he just doesn't seem to be able to organise anything really, and he just seems to be all out attack all the time. So that'll work with players when you have, Noah Lang, Joey Veerman pinging balls there. You've got players like Sabari, I thought was really good when he came on today, and he had a good summer in Morocco.
Number 10 as well.
23. Yeah, so I think he's exciting. They've got Isaac Boubadi, who made his first start tonight, and I thought he was very pacey, very exciting. And then you got Bakayoko still there, even though Napoli and PSG are sniffing around. It looks like he's going to stay. Expect more from him this season. So they do have enough in the attack to hurt teams. What I think might happen through the season is their attack's very pacey, and then you still have Luke de Jong in there, I think halfway through the season, you might see Luke de Jong becoming the second striker and Pepe becoming the first one.
I agree.
That's my prediction for the season. I think that de Jong will start, but as the season goes on, you won't suit the style of play that they're going into. Then Pepe will slowly start making his way in there, and it's the right thing to do. If you've got somebody that's aging not as quick as he was, not really getting the service into the box that you probably would expect, because players like Noah Lang and Bakayoko are really going to be crossing the ball in. Yeah, you still got Joey Veerman putting in crosses, but it's mostly going to be played on the ground. So wherever you take out de Jong's main strength, there you go. And then you got somebody like Pepe scored a lot of goals last season for a really bad running inside. So I think that if you put him in a better team, you'll do well. So yeah, I've got no problems with the PSV attack. It's as you say, defensively, they need another couple of players in there just to add some depth. Because Branthwaite he did better than I thought he was going to do last year. When he signed him, I was a bit dubious, but in the end, I thought he had an excellent season at the back for them. It's a shame that they couldn't bring him back. But yeah, they've got 3-4 weeks to add a new number 10 and probably another defensive midfielder when Sangare goes, and a couple of defenders, and then yeah, I'd say that they're definitely the main challenger to Feyenoord this season.
And it all depends, again, what happens in Europe, how invested they get within that. Because that does have an impact on teams. And I just think that the gap between what could be a top 3, top 4 will be quite tight this season. And many things, of course, will affect that. So when we show their table predictions a bit later, can't take it, only take it with a pinch of salt, because things can change, of course. And that brings me nicely onto Ajax, because a lot could still change with this club. Probably one of the biggest talking points of the league, of the summer, is the fact that Maurice Stijn, first of all, has come in as manager from Sparta Rotterdam, a promotion I do think he deserved, but the situation he's been thrown into is perhaps a little unfair, and it's going to be tricky to judge just how well he's done already because of the rebuilding job he has on his hands. That the club have lost Dusan Tadic, Jurgen Timber, Calvin Bassey, and the thing with Tadic is that he left because he felt as though the players' quality wasn't as high as it has been. He was brought to Ajax, to win trophies, to play in the Champions League. He won't get to do that, he feels like, with the club for the remaining years of his career. Perhaps, there's 2-3 years left that he had. A few players that are still there are happy. Those senior players that, again, went there to succeed, to play in a really good team. For me, I don't think that attitude is... Whilst it served Ajax well at one point, I'm not sure that's what the club wants at the minute. It's not what they need. Players around that don't really want to be there quite. They're like Steven Berghuis, for example, been very vocal in the media. And the players have been brought in. Branko van der Bomen looks like it could be a good midfielder. Will be important for them going forwards. Tahirovic, I think the jury's still out on him, who's come in, young player. Ramai is a goalkeeper, probably going to be second fiddle to Rui, who, again, Rui doesn't seem particularly happy to be at the club at the minute. And there's a lot of intrigue around Carlos. I might say his name wrong, so please don't kill me in the comments. But Carlos Borges, he's a Portuguese winger that's come from Man City. Hadn't played a senior game in his whole career, but Ajax beat West Ham to his signature. And as the left winger, lots of pace. I do think he could be very good. But let's get into them, Mike. What job has Stijn got on his hands? Can he do it? And he's got so many players yet to add to his squad, hasn't he? Mislintat, the director, he's been, again, vocal in the media. It's been very noisy around Ajax, like it always is. But he's got a lot more deals still to strike. I think at the moment, Ajax would be in big trouble in the Eredivisie. But the transfers are coming, right?
If you're an Ajax fan, you're saying they better. It's been a terrible pre-season for them, results-wise, performance-wise. The players don't look like, half of them don't look like they're arsed to be there. You've had Klaassen being captain, which I think is a joke. I think that if you're giving him the captain's armband, that just shows you how bad the situation's got, because I think he's
Stein's seriously looking at him, though, because, he should be going, but I think Stein's like, he's one of the only leaders left. But I also think that he thinks he's quality enough to be around.
Yeah, because he's come out and said, like, it's up to Klaassen to prove that he's good enough to be in the team, which isn't something you say about one of your key players. Like, if if an offer comes in from, I think he would go. I think that there's even rumours that they were talking about ripping up his contract just to get rid of him. And then you've got Berghaus getting linked to Turkey. You've got even who was it? That's today, Bergwijn getting linked to Saudi Arabia as well. And then you've got Edson Alvarez moving away. I think that Fabrizio Romano's just tweeted out that he's got an agreement with West Ham. So it seems like the goings out keep coming. And then it was only the weekend Stein was saying that, oh, that means that we can now spend. So they had to get rid of 3 or 4 players, financial fair play, or just to get the money to actually bring in players. But then the jury's out. We've sat and had conversations before about the quality of the signings that the teams are making in the Eredivisie. I know that you're very vocal about. I think it was Heracles one year signing players from the 3rd division in Germany. And for me, I actually be targeting the best players in the best leagues that are below sort of like European level. So like they should be looking at. They brought Dusan Tadic from Southampton when he was still a Premier League player. They should be looking at the, basically mid-table Bundesliga, mid-table French league, mid-table Italy below. They're in talks to sign somebody from St. Pauli today. He's 24 centre back, and I'm thinking, it's the 2nd division of Germany, really now where they're looking to strengthen the defence. Yeah, they're getting linked to a player from Dynamo Zagreb who's going to cost them 20-30 million, and if that Mislintat's come on with a big reputation, but he's never really worked out anywhere that he's been at. So the jury's out, and the jury's out on his signings because they've signed a goalkeeper who has 2 first-team appearances under his name to challenge, really. They're going after Borges, who's never made a first-team appearance. Yes, his stats are very good at reserve level, but so are a lot of players. Deschamps Redan looked like an absolute world beater for Chelsea under 23s. Comes into first-team football and is absolutely immense, and he's now playing, I think it's the latest year's 3rd division Italian team. So if I was an Ajax fan, I'd be worried because where's this quality that they're meant to be bringing in? I'm not seeing it yet, and the results in preseason aren't showing anything. Branko van den Boomen is a player that I am very excited about seeing. I think that he is really good, and I think that he'll be a player that they need to build around. He might become the new leader of the team, but you need to bring in some quality, whether that's quality from the Eredivisie or quality from top leagues to come in and make this team better. It's out there, but it seems that Mislintat seems to have this little area where he thinks he's an expert in Germany and maybe some youth football teams that he's trying to pick up these players for. And if these players don't work out, then we'll see the table prediction soon. But the teams around Ajax are strengthening. If they don't strengthen their side, they could be in deep trouble this year. And if they go 2 years without Champions League football, then that's an absolute disaster for them. And
we are having spent the money that they spent. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It could be a real big steps back for them because they spent a fair bit of money already this summer, and it could be more. Like you said, on these kind of unproven players, I do think a couple of them could really work out. Who, one they've already signed, but also 1 or 2 more that I've been linked with. There's even talks that Hakim Ziyech could really be coming back, but I don't know how true that is. You don't, do you? And until it's September the 1st or 2nd, whenever this transfer window closes now, we won't know quite how strong Ajax are. But I can see your fear that there's no strength in depth. I mean, they played 2 teenagers at centre back in a preseason friendly. I know Joe Harto's in for a good season. Looks a cracking young player, but they had nobody else, and that's sending alarm bells to a lot of Ajax fans. You can't put this team together to challenge the Eredivisie title in that short notice. I still have doubts over the likes of Kenneth Taylor and Divine Delench. I don't think they are Eredivisie top 3 quality, personally. Taylor more so, but Rensch maybe not. They're there to prove me wrong. I hope they do, because I think they deserve all the best. That I want they really prove me wrong, but I don't think that they are the level that Ajax had 3 or 4 years ago at all. I think they wouldn't get anywhere near those teams, but they're now starters hands down because there's no one that's challenged them. And yeah, what a Stein within all of this, that he must have joined knowing this would happen. Maybe he wants his challenge. Maybe he just wants a chance to take on a top 3 team. The opportunity is too good to turn down. But yeah, if this goes wrong for him, do the club stick by him? Do they look at Mislintat first? Do they look at Stein first? What happens for you?
Well, I think that Stein's the one that'll take the brunt of the blame if anything starts to go wrong. But I doubt he's the one that's pushing for these players to be signed. I doubt he's gone to St. and said, I really like this boy who plays for St. Pauli. It's definitely him that's in charge of the transfers. And again, it should be his neck on the line when it comes down to it. But we're going past this. The club are in a situation not because of what they are now, it's because what have happened ever since Overmars has left. The mismanagement, the mis-scouting that they did last year, bringing in Calvin Bassey, bringing in Sanchez, bringing in players like Rulli, who even Rulli hasn't really hit the heights of.
Not really.
Some fans really want him to be taken over by another goalkeeper, and then you've got Conce Sal, who shows glimpses, but you can't get into the team. You go back as far as Darami. I mean, signed him, did absolutely nothing, loaned him out, and now he's going to link to Burnley. It's misstep after misstep after misstep. You look up front, Luca came in, did nothing. You got Brian Brobby came back, hasn't been good. So if you are somebody like Dusan Tadic, who's looking into the last few years of his career, wanting to win trophies, you're looking around that dressing room, thinking Kenneth Taylor's going to be a starter, Davy Claessen's going to be a starter. I've got Brian Brobby up front. I've got the defence who can't defend with Sanchez, Bassey, Rulli in goal. The leader's a 17-year-old kid. Like, it's an absolute shambles. And no wonder he's decided to go. And he's going to a club where they've brought in some really quality players in the Fenerbahce side to actually challenge to reach the Champions League. And Ajax this season, yeah, they can play Europa League, but then next year they could be playing Conference League. The year after that, they could not even be in Europe if it continues like this. It's a shambles. And maybe they'll have to look at the academy, but even their academy, even their young side, I don't think there's anyone really coming through that you can say they're definite. Misahoy, Kaloka, they're okay. They're really good talents, but they've shown nothing in pre-season to say that they're absolutely ready for Eredivisie football. And then you got Van Axel Dongen, who is just injured all the time. Fitz Jim, who's not even featured in pre-season. They need at least 3 to 4 more players this summer to even have a chance of challenging for top 4.
Top 4, wow. I mean, that's a bit of a window into your table, Mike, which, again, I'll promise listeners that we will bring up. Of course, if you're listening to this on YouTube, you'll get to see that very, very shortly. And a shout out again to anyone that's watching. Thank you for watching, listening to this. Subscribe to Football-Oranje if you're enjoying this. Much more Dutch football to come throughout the season. Give it a like as well. Let's go on to RZ Alkmaar. Last season's 4th place team. And one that I really just want to keep an eye on is a team that could always end up winning this league. But because of the steps they've taken back again with selling some key players, bringing in not youth players, but young players and actually players in their youth team, they're just an unknown quantity. And with the run in Europe as well, predictably to come, you just don't quite know how far it could go. But I think looking at some of the players that come in, they're going to take time to settle in. They've lost Reinders, Kerkez, Berkema, and Van Housden. Brought in lots of players. I none of them are over the age of 21, 23 even. You've got Cassius who's coming as a right back, Wolf who's a left back from Norway, Ruben van Bommel, who I'm sure we'll talk about very shortly, and a couple of Portuguese players. We've got Dantas, who's a quality midfielder. I think he could be a great addition, and Alexander Penetra, who is a centre-back and right-back, but I think Isaac will play more as a centre-back. He's come from basically like a mid-table Portuguese club. I think it's great scouting. I'm pleased that Isaac have shelled out some millions to get him in. That Portuguese duo could be brilliant, and Van Bommel as well. I know they might lose a couple more players yet. Pascal Jansson's a good manager. He could really put his name out there this season, couldn't he? If Isaac have a very strong campaign. And tell us about Janssen. Tell us about some of these young players. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, he's just like a club I always look at, and they make me happy most of the time. There's a point last season where I wasn't too happy at the start, thinking they weren't going to have a good season under Janssen, but they're a team that just likes to give young players a chance, and they've got such a good academy. And they won the Youth League last year, and going into the season, I think that they're signing young players, they're bringing them through. If you're looking at Dutch talents, that I'm sure we'll look at later on, the best young players to watch, but AZ have most of them because they're the ones that are probably going to give the chance to the likes of Meerdink, to Van Bommel, to Poku, who's had a great preseason. And even going into midfield, Kenzo Goodmine's back from his loan away from Excelsior, and at the back, it's a shame Ghost got injured because he would have been probably a starter there. And just throughout the team, they've got so many top young Dutch talents that are coming through, and they're going to be exciting to watch. But even then, you got a spine there that's good enough to be challenging at the top of the table. You still got Pavlidis up front. I know that there's Bundesliga clubs sniffing around him, and he could go, but right now he's still there. You've still got Jesper Karlsson, even though he keeps getting linked to moves to Italy, he keeps getting linked to moves to Spain. He's still there. I actually think that AZ might be a bit better off if they do get rid of him, but I might be alone in thinking that. But as long as he's there, he's still a quality winger.
And then it's a tricky one because I just want to come in that Karlsson point. A cracking player, I think, is exciting, but RZ did struggle a lot of the time to break down defenses last season. It happened against West Ham in the Conference League semi-final, and when they were up against low blocks in the Eredivisie, and then they struggled to get those wins. It was some draws in there, and if they turn those into wins, of course they get into that top 3, top 2, and that's part of my worry. Though you're bigging up RZ for all the right reasons, but they have the same players, so they'll have the same struggles as last season, surely.
Some of the same players. You look at players like they are young, so they're coming through. They've had a year experience more. I think Van Bommel is something different that he didn't have. He's more of a goal scorer on the wing. Poku, he didn't get a chance last season, but in preseason, he's the one that's been creating everything. He's the one that's been scoring the goals. In midfield, you don't have Reinders. I think that Reinders for me was, if you're going to talk about the most underrated player in Eredivisie last season, for me it was him, because what he did in that midfield and what he showed in Europa League as well, Europa Conference League, sorry, was excellent. That's why he's earned the move to AC Milan. But when you ever spoke about Reinders, you always got people saying, "Oh, he was really average," or "He didn't really do that much." But I think he was behind most of the creativity in that AZ midfield last year. Scored goals, got back, tackled. He did everything. Like, I thought he outshone Jordi Clasie, and there's some people saying that Jordi Clasie should have been in the Netherlands side. But we'll see how the two new boys from Portugal do. They've got Danny De Vit back. He missed most of the season for injury last year, and he's a key player in there for scoring goals. So I think that, they do still have some of the same players there, but you've got youngsters that are a year older. You're going to have more chances to players like Meerdink to develop. You've got Van Bommel on the left. You've got Van Broderode coming into another year of him improving. Poku from the right. In midfield, you've got new faces, extra creativity. You've got Danny De Vit coming back. Then on the fullback situation as well, you don't have Kirkes anymore. You had to bomb forward, but you've got Wilf, and on the right you've got Cassius as well. And Cassius, for me, Netherlands under 21 international, did well at Bologna, can come in there, and I think he'll be a top quality Eredivisie right back. So for me, they're not done on the transfer market. I still think they could do 1 or 2 more players, and probably an attacking midfielder in there to create some chances. But I think they're looking good, and I wouldn't rule them out of being an outside chance to win the league if everything clicks, or they could finish 4th. But I don't have a pessimism around the young talents there, because they showed last year that they're good enough in the youth league. Now you give them a chance. I think that some of the best young players in the Netherlands are in this AZ side, and then you can give first team debuts to Adai. There's midfielders that haven't got a look yet. They're in there. I think this AZ side is something to be excited for going into the season.
Okay. Yeah, and for reasons I can totally agree with you with, that they have quality and they're looking in a lot better shape than, for example, Ajax at the moment. They don't have all the changes that PSV do, for example, new manager. But let's see. I think we've had a lot of people that have been listening and watching that have been very patient, and they'd love to see our table predictions now, Mike. So I'm going to put them up on screen. So a bit of debate. And of course, we will talk about each team individually throughout this show. So we've only talked about 4 so far. Got another 14 to go. Let's find the window. There it is. And share. Is that on screen, Mike?
Yeah, that's there.
So as people can see, we've got Feyenoord as winning the league again. PSV finishing second. But I think my eyes were drawn straight away when I saw your table, Mike, that you put RZ as third over Ajax, and that's got to be because of the situation that Ajax are in at the moment, hasn't it? What if Ajax go and sign 3 or 4 players? Let's say one of them is Hakim Ziyech, for example. Do you think they can finish then back in that top 3, maybe even second?
Yeah, this is all based on, what we're looking at on the 4th of August and the situation that's going around the club at the moment. So this is all very much a month before the season, like the transfer window shuts. This is my prediction. If the season started now and, they told Ajax you're not allowed to sign anybody else between now and the end of the season, this is what I think would happen. But if Ajax have the ability to go out and sign 3 to 4 good players, if Hakim Ziyech comes back, if they get another striker, someone like Myron Boadu who's available, then they can challenge up top. But with the squad that they have at the moment, I can't see it being anything other than a disappointing season. But that can change in the next 4 weeks, and I hope it does change for Ajax fans, because you want that competition at the top. You want it to be a really, really close title race, and I think that it will be between the top 2. I think that it's going to be very, very close there. I want Ajax to be part of that, but just looking at the moment, it's not good, and it needs to change in the next 4 weeks, or it could be a sticky one.
Whilst I am pretty set now with what I think the top positions could look like, I will admit that this will be tight. I don't think this is going to be predictable this season, and I'll make that point again when I say that I annoyingly picked the same top 6 in the same order they finished at the end of last season. It might happen again, but I really just don't see it happening. There's going to be 1 or 2 big surprises in there. Could be a team that breaks into his top 6. There could be a real miss. RZ, for example, finishing second. You just don't know. But I'm all for seeing these changes, because at the moment I can't predict quite which team it could be. I do think Ajax will sign some players. I do think PSV and the Bosch will improve a lot. But at the end of the day, I think Feyenoord have got that little edge because of Slot, because of a couple of the players they've got. Jimenez being the best striker in the league now, like you said. Yeah, I don't see it happening. Below down the table, whilst we'll talk about each of these teams individually, I've noticed we've both put Almere to be finishing bottom. I've gone with RKC really dropping like a stone this season and finishing 17th. Mike, I think we've both gone for Volendam and Heracles being 16th, 15th, respectively. Bits of piece of overlap there. And that mid-table bunch, that could be quite tricky to call, because quite often they're only separated by a couple of points, aren't they? Some parts of a table. And that mid-table pack, I think, whilst my team's at the bottom, I'm pretty confident about the bottom 5. I would say the mid-table bunch, any one of them could be finishing in the top 8, which could potentially give Conference League playoffs. Of course, this season, the Eredivisie will have 6 European places to give out. If the cup winner is a team at the top, then we could be looking at top 2 being Champions League tickets, 3rd being Champions League playoff position, 4th being Europa League, and then 5th being Conference League, and 6th to 9th being the playoffs. That would be very exciting for the league, won't it, Mike? And do you agree as well that it's quite hard to predict who will finish, for example, 7th and 8th?
Yeah, I think looking at it, you'd say that we've pretty much picked similar teams to be in similar places. And I think once you get below, the top teams, you've got Twente, who are probably in a little pool of their own, are just below the top 4, but just ahead of the rest of them. But then after that, you've got a couple that could either have a great season or could be absolutely horrible and drop right down. And last season was the same. You've probably going to go into the last couple of rounds where anyone from 15th could finish top 9, because it's going to be so close down there. Possibly. There's so small margins between some of the sides, and I think that it's pretty hard to predict. And I think last year we probably would have all said Volendam would be bottom of the table, and halfway through the season would look like, we're right, but then they climbed out of it and shocked everyone. But I think we're both looking at Almere City thinking, how are they going to have the quality to stay up? But stranger things have happened, and who knows how it could be come June next year. So I think it's going to be a tight race, a tight at the bottom again, and then a tight in the middle as well. So the extra European places makes it very exciting, and it gives like opportunities for teams like NEC and Fortuna Sittard, RKC. These teams, if they have a good season, they can get into a European playoff spot, which is huge. So yeah, it's exciting.
Exactly, because if that top 5 that we both predicted there, they all get the European tickets like this season, you're going to see a team such as Utrecht and you see Vitesse getting a Conference League spot in the qualifiers. In terms of the quality of the league, then I've got a couple of questions there, Mike, and then we'll get on to each of the rest of the teams we haven't talked about yet. Do you think the league as a whole has improved over the past 12 months in terms of European level? I ask you that because this season the Eredivisie could be, it could be likely to be a top 5 European league. And great, so that Football-Oranje is the best English language output, of course, Dutch football, the only one. But we could be talking about this show could be a top 5 European league show because the quality of the league has improved. Has it improved enough to be better than Ligue 1 and the Portuguese league, in your opinion, Mike?
Yeah, the argument I've always had, and there's people on Twitter will tell you that the French league's way ahead of the Eredivisie, but is it? Like,
how?
If you took PSG and the money that they have out of that league,
yeah,
what team can Feyenoord not beat in that league? Right? It's none of them. Like, same for Ajax, same for PSV. If you pop them in that league and put them up against Monaco, Lyon, Lille, Nice, any of them,
how about Marseille at the
PSV
minute?
would be. Then that's the sort of level maybe you're at. PSV Marseille, that would be a close game for me. I don't think Marseille would come and absolutely smash PSV. I don't think they would. Maybe quite tight. So I think the best in the Eredivisie can battle the best in France, except for PSG. But PSG have probably about 50 times the budget of the top 4 in the Eredivisie put together. So that's just an outlier. But yeah, it's exciting. I think that in terms of the quality, I think the problem that we had for years was not the quality of the top 4, it was the quality of the teams below them. And that's why teams wanted to go, like players wanted to leave, because the teams below didn't have enough quality to prove a challenge. And the pitches were all fake. They were getting injured. You didn't really want to play in the league because you go to somewhere like Excelsior, they're playing on a plastic pitch. You go away and you beat them 6-0, and you're like, well, what's the point? I think in terms of the quality of the teams below the top is improving. The league's getting rid of the plastic pitches, which is a huge relief. And yeah, I think that the Eredivisie at the moment, you've got Twente coming back from when they came down, went down to the second division. They've come back, they're challenging again. You've got teams like PEC Zwolle and Heracles coming up, and they're Eredivisie sides. And if you look at the second division at the moment, there's 3 or 4 teams that you think, oh, they're Eredivisie quality. They can't even get in the league now. So I think as a whole, Dutch football is improving, the standards improving, the second division is improving, and that for me is why the Eredivisie is now getting further in Europe. It's not, Vitesse doesn't get knocked out by teams from Luxembourg anymore. Twente got through a very sticky tie. I think that Hammarby are a decent side. And I think that out of any team that Twente could have got, they're probably the hardest one that they could have had. So that was a good challenge. They got through it. I think they'll beat Riga. I think they'll have them in the Conference League. And then, I think that
who knows, the playoffs
next season, who knows how far teams can go in Europa League, the Conference League again. Champions League at the moment, I still think it's a bit far off. I don't see Feyenoord reaching like the semi-final of the Champions League or anything like that. But for the competitions below that, I'd like to see a team go really far in Europa League, a team reaching the semi-finals of the Conference League again, because these teams are good enough to do it.
I think that the league's probably come on, first of all, because of the introduction of the next relegation place. That's kept a lot of teams in their toes. I've looked at the transfers this summer, and a number of teams have begun to spend money that I didn't think would have money. I mean, even Go Ahead Eagles spending like €1.5 million. That's a big deal for the Eredivisie. Teams would normally go for free transfers, promote youth players, go for loan deals. Those things are still happening, but you're seeing teams actually buying players, and I think that is because of a strengthening of the league. There are teams that haven't, and we'll talk about those, and that's why they might then struggle this season. But then also the other thing that's really improved the league as a whole with quality is the introduction of a conference league, in my view. Whilst I know the KNVB's put in like the weekend break sometimes if a team's in Europe and they'll play on Thursday, not play at the weekend, then Thursday again. I think those things are quite minimal. Plastic pitches makes the league more desirable, but again, a minimal change because we still haven't seen those completely being eradicated yet. In a couple of years, it'll be different. But the Conference League kept, obviously, the coefficient points coming, and I think we'll always see, I think, a Dutch team go really far in that competition. We had Final do it, get to the final. We had Arsenal get to the semis. Who could do it this season? Maybe even Ajax drop into that competition this season. And Ajax, come the end of the season, could be a very different proposition. They could be a lot stronger again once young players have developed. They might want to go in that competition to sort of look after their season. It looks a bit better. Yeah, it's come a long way from. I know, Mike, we both sat here when. You've done football longer than me, but I can remember when I first sort of started doing stuff with you, probably like 7 years ago, and the Eredivisie was in quite a state. It was like 14th or 15th best league in Europe. It dropped all the way down, and the difference between our view of the league then and now is wildly different.
Yeah, 100%. Like asking leaps and bounds, and you can say there's certain things that have happened since then that have probably helped, like Ajax getting so far in the Champions League, and
definitely,
yeah, the introduction of the Conference League. Feyenoord getting so far. The teams agreeing to share out money between the lower teams in the league. Yeah, there's a lot of things that have happened in the past, 3, 4, 5 years that have improved the league as a whole. And I think it will keep getting better. You've now got 3 Champions League spots coming, and it could be more in the future if it keeps going up and up and up. And
yeah,
say AZ Alkmaar get third this season and they get into the Champions League, qualifiers, the players that they can then attract and the players that they can then keep at the club is huge. Because even though we're saying the league's improved, the best players in the league have still left. And until that happens, that they're staying, then we can't really say that the Eredivisie is now one of the top leagues. You've still got Xavi Simons saying, I'm going to be better off going and playing in Bundesliga or Leipzig. Or I've got Orkin Kochu saying that Benfica is a better option for me because they're going to pay me more money. You've got Milos Kerkez saying, I don't want to play in Europe. I want to play for Bournemouth at the bottom of the Premier League. Until that stops happening, then the league's not going to reach the heights of top 4 leagues. So there's still work to be done, but it's going in the right direction anyway.
Well said. Let's go on to Twente. We both thought they'd finish 5th this season, which would be the same as last season. But they've got a new manager, Joseph Oosting, who did so well at RKC Waalwijk. I really rate him. I really like him. He's a people person. He gets along with the players really well. Tactically did well at RKC. I'm interested what he could do with Twente this season, given that they've lost Vaclav Černý, Virgil Masidjan, 2 big wingers. I'm so surprised they didn't get to keep hold of at least Masidjan, for example. And another big loss was losing Zarouki in midfield. But they've kept Ugalde. They've signed him permanently. Younes Talha from PEC Zwolle. Yuri here from Ajax. And actually Univaz arrives alone as well from Ajax. Some young players in there. They've lost a bit of quality. Like you said earlier, they are better than the rest. But they don't have enough to break into that top 4, even with the influence of Oosting. And I think if Twente get into Europe, in terms of getting through his qualifiers into the group stage, there I will definitely be on that competition. I don't think they will. I think they'll struggle in the playoffs. They're going to have a difficult opponent there. I hope I'm wrong. But they will have a good season. And I think Twente fans are happy with that. Where they were a while ago, cash-strapped into the second league, them finishing 5th again and qualifying for Europe again is wonderful. And I think the fans will be very pleased.
Yeah. I think that last season was good for them. Losing Ron Jans is a blow. I think the job that he did at the club was immense.
Amazing.
I think that he worked wonders with the squad that he had, getting them to where they are now. And now you've got to transition to a new coach coming in, biggest job that he's had so far in his career. Can he, come out of the shadow of someone like Ron Jans? and take them to the next level. And at the moment, I think they're a couple of midfielders short of being a really, really good side. I think that you've lost the rookie, you've not really replaced him. You've got Sadalek in there. Sam Stein's having the time of his life at the moment. He scored, I think it was like 6 goals in pre-season, scored both the goals in Conference League. But then you got Michael Vlap in there as well. I think that if they could just add someone else in there as like a ball-winning midfielder to replace the rookie, then I think they'd be set. And then up front,
because I actually think that they don't need that kind of player. That I believe that they need a winger or two. They need someone who's really creative. Like, I'd love them to have Noah Lang back. I know they won't get that. They can't afford that. But that would totally change their team for me.
I think that's why they signed Univar and the boy from PEC Zwolle. I think they should be playing on the wings. But so far, Oosting's not used them yet. He played Rots and he put a Galdi up front. And then Univar and
Vlap was on the left.
Yeah, and then these players came on in the second half to try and change the game. So I think that if you have Univar from the left, the Galdi from the middle, then that adds some pace. I think Univar, what he showed at Trabzonspor last season wasn't enough. He didn't get enough game time. On the left wing for a young Ajax, he's been good. So now he needs to prove that he can actually do it in Eredivisie, and I think that this is a chance if he gets to game time on the left-hand side for Twente to try and replace what they've lost in Misijan. I think Czerny is the biggest loss for them. But for me as well, they're now trying to transition away from Van Wilswinkel being the main man to Galdi now being the main man.
Yeah.
So we saw it yesterday and the week before where Van Wilswinkel was on the bench and there was a Galdi up front and it didn't work. And then they're having to bring on Van Wilswinkel and then they're scraping wins because Stein's coming in and scoring goals. So it's not 100% working yet. So it needs tweaked and they need to add, I think, a couple of players for the transfer window. It's, again, always the thing is, it's that they could also lose players. You know, Joshua Brennett is still there. He could leave. If somebody realizes how good Small is on the left-hand side, somebody could pick him up. Mies Helgers is still there, even though we thought that he would go. He signed a new deal. So, yeah, there's a couple of players that could still leave. But overall, I still think that they're the fifth best side in the league. I don't think they have the players coming through that are going to elevate them to challenge top 4, though. So, yeah, I think that they're sort of in that position of being good enough to finish 5th, but not any further.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Mike. Let's move on to Utrecht. Now, they are one of the best of the rest. They have gone about some good summer business. They haven't signed any world beaters, I don't think, but they lost Bastost, Sander van der Streek, some other players too. But I've brought in the likes of Zidane Iqbal from Manchester United. I think he's gained some interest online. They've got a couple of loan deals permanent, Sagna and Barkas. They've gone for the likes of El Karawani, a new left back. Matt Sunchens has been great in mid-table Eredivisie in the past. Bosco Dayan has also come in permanently. Azar Khan, who did well at Excelsior last season, is a good winger. He's come in. They spent around 5-6 million euros, I think, Utrecht, which is a good outlay of money, backing Michael Silberbauer, the manager who came in last season. And by the way, in a league that's gained 8 new managers this summer, you know, Silberbauer still is one of those new managers as well. This is a team that could impress. But for example, signing Lidberg from Go Ahead Eagles, I'm not sure how that improves their team, really. It depends, I think, on what Silberbauer does tactically, what he can do with these players. Can he get the most out of them? Or will they just be another best of the rest? Hope for the best in the playoffs again.
Yeah, I make a mistake with Utrecht every single summer thinking, oh, they've done good business this year. This is their year where they're going to challenge. And they do absolutely nothing. And there's part of me, again, looking at the squad being like, oh, this is their year. This is their year. You know, they got Zarkan now. They've got Iqbal in there. I think Lidberg and Romani are smart Eredivisie signings for like a team that wants to push to the next level. But as you say, they could also go the other way and be absolutely terrible and then drop down to like 8th, 9th. But they've managed to keep hold of Taylor Booth, who I thought would leave after what he did last season. they've got a good spine. Sander van der Streek's still not signed for anyone. He could come back. I think he's very important for them over the past few years. But yeah, it all depends on who's going to. Duvikas, is he going to stay? Eredivisie joint top goal scorer last season. Can he really keep hold of him, or is he going to be one of these players that leave just before the transfer window closes? If they can keep him, brilliant. Then I think they have basically a goal scorer that can take him to the next level. But yeah, I say about Utrecht every year that they've signed really good. This is going to be their time, and then it doesn't happen. I think if they are going to have a great season, you're looking at them challenging Twente for 5th, and that's probably about it. And maybe challenging for European spot. If Utrecht can get back into Europe, that's an amazing season for them. That's what they're pushing for.
Exactly.
Then they can take it to the next level. This is the year that they could do that. If they get to the playoffs, they could be the best team in the playoffs. And yeah, let's root for them to maybe go far in the cup competition and go for a European playoff spot, because at least they've gone out and they've bought the players, they're spending a bit of money, they're showing a bit of ambition, and hopefully they've got the right man in charge in Silberbauer to actually take them to that next level, or he could be one of the first head coaches to get sacked.
I agree, because they've given him confidence. They backed him with the money they spent. And yeah, the club are obviously aiming for European football. They're not aiming to challenge for the title. They could with this extra European ticket, they could win the playoffs and they don't have a Twente or an RZ around to try and beat now. But if they dethrone Twente and get in the top 5, then they get that European spot this time. Yeah, this is a team that could go on and do more. Got some young players that go and impress. But because like you said, that you could see it going either way, that says to me that there could be a bit of inconsistency coming, some good times, some bad times throughout the season. And they've played PSV on the opening weekend of the season. They could go and beat them, and then draw 0-0 or something at home to a team that they should be beating the week after or something. I think I'll keep my mind open to them, but I think we're both predicting to be sick for a reason, that not going to quite be better than the rest that are above them. Should we move on to another team? And it's quite hard to know where to go next, because we talked about the Eredivisie Big Six. I think we'll go Vitesse Arnhem. They've got quite a bit of reputation, I think, in terms of their playing squad, in terms of the manager, Philip Koku's there. He was another one who joined throughout last season. They haven't bought fantastically, but I think what they will have, though, is the fact that Van Hinkel and David Proper could be fit, to experienced midfielders there, because they lost a whole bunch of experience, but also a bunch of kind of mediocre players that don't really push them onto the next level. I think Vitesse would like to be back in the top half, the kind of European question again. Can they do that? I mean, I went with them being 8th. I think they should comfortably be a top half team, though, with the quality they have. I think the question mark will be whether Boutra, the striker that signed from France, I think he's done well in like the French 3rd division, scored a bunch of goals there. Could he hit it off in the Eredivisie? It's the league to do it. If you're going to score lots of goals coming from another country, this is the league to do it in. So he could be good. Elo Rome's come in as goalkeeper. I think he'll be a steady pair of hands, having had a couple of duds in the past couple of seasons. What do you make of their chances, Mike? And could Koku push them onto heights? Could they, for example, push into the top 6?
I hope so. I think the last year was a bit of a disaster for Vitesse. We've been so used to them being at the top of the table, being that sort of Twente side, just outside the top 4. When they actually drop back down, you're thinking, wow, that's a shame. But I think this year they do have players that can take them to the next level. I think that they've kept Manhoff. I think Million Manhoff is one of, if you're looking outside the top 4 for who's the best player in the league, Manhoff's name's going to be up there for some people as one of the best players. And I think that I'm surprised he didn't get moved above or even to another league this summer, because I think he's got a lot of quality. And a couple of players that signed, Hamulic, the striker, is from Toulouse. He's a Bosnian international. He could be okay. Didn't really do much at Toulouse after they signed him. But I think he could do okay. And I think that, as you said, the main thing is that they get Van Hinkel and Proper back. They've got Tielemans in from PSV. I think that Tielemans is one that interests me, because I think that PSV wanted to keep him. He was the star of their young PSV side that won a trophy last year, and I think that they were keen to still have him around, but he decided, now I want to go off and get some first team football somewhere. He's gone to Vitesse, so he could be one to watch. He's one of the breakout stars of the league. Defense, they got Mirren, Muhlenstein, decent Eredivisie defense in there. Then they've got youngsters as well. They've got a young guy called Jonathan's, a winger. They got Simon van Duvenbuden up front. Jan Direct, another winger as well. A couple of young players that have pinpointed at Vitesse are quite exciting. So I think they'll be a good watch. I think they'll be well managed by Koku, and I think they do have a really good chance of making the playoffs this year. I've got them 7th. I think that's where they 7th, 8th is probably where they're aiming for. So steady progress from last season, a bit better, more wins, and then a place in European playoffs. And I think that Vitesse will be more than happy with that.
And one more team that I think could be up there, top half definitely, and could be a surprise package. That's why I've gone with them being 7th. I wouldn't be surprised if they could even push on even higher than that. Is NEC Nijmegen. They have strengthened really well, in my view. Getting Sancho Hansen from Ajax, that could be very good. Yuri Bass has arrived on loan from Ajax. Then they've brought in Bram Nautink from he used to be with that club a long time ago, like Lasse, for example, kind of a club hero. And a few other players around that. Ross, a centre-back, Danish centre-back, is coming on loan. They've got a player from Sweden, he's Norwegian, Larsen. And then another lone player, Gonzalez, another winger. Agoa from Japan. Hoymakers, who got relegated to Combo last season, but was a good midfielder. So there's kind of some unknowns in there, I've got to say. But they inspire me with confidence. They've had some good results over pre-season NEC. I mean, they beat Venezia, for example, just today, I think it was. They are a handy team because of the likes of Schöne being in there. Jasper Silason's still the goalkeeper there. It's a major coup still for the club. Only really losing Sissoko to France. I think he will be missed a little bit. The other players are missed. They're lost. I don't think they're going to be, you're going to say, it's a big gap because of them gone. And that's why I think they could do something. That's why I think they could be a surprise package. They've got good home support. They've got some technical players. I think they've got some goals in them. The other thing for me is I don't know about Roger Meyer's manager. Fans go blow hot and cold on him, but given that he got them promoted, he's kept them in the league. They could be about to push on and do something even more. It would be terrific, really, for NEC. What do you make of their chances this season, Mike?
Yeah, I'm excited to watch them. I think that Svante Hansen's a player that I've been hoping to break out for the past few years since he was in the Netherlands under 17 sides and under 19 sides. And you're thinking that he's going to be world-class talent. It just never happened at Ajax, whether it was injuries or form or not signing his contract and getting dropped and behind the scenes issues. I think that this is his season to prove himself, and I really hope he does it. I've seen players leave Ajax before and not be able to live up to it, but I think Hansen has all the capabilities of being a really quality Eredivisie winger, and I think it's a very smart move from NEC Nijmegen to bring him in, because he strengthens that attack. That they lost Sissoko, but Sissoko wasn't a starter really last season. He was hot and cold. He brought in loads of money for them, which is great for the club. But you're looking at they've lost. I'm looking at the players that went out. You had Tanan in there, but Tanan was brilliant one week, sent off the next. And then you miss him for 3 games because he's done something stupid. So I think getting rid of him, bringing some calm around the side, and they've still got the experience quality of Sillison in there. They've got Lasse Schöne in midfield, Dirk Proper in midfield, even though he was getting linked to other clubs this summer as well. I think that adding Hoedemakers in there. The worry for me would be up front. Who's going to score the goals? Do they have a striker that's capable of scoring up to 10, 12 goals? I don't know. I mean, only strikers I can see here are Pedro Marquez. Didn't really do much last season. They signed Ogawa from Japan. Could be a revelation. It looks like he scored a lot of goals in Japan. is he good enough to score all the goals in the Eredivisie? Wait and see. Could he do with bringing in maybe another striker that's more suited to Eredivisie before the summer transfer window goes? If they get that, then yeah, I think that they are a side that can push for a European player spot, and I think they're a side that a lot of people will enjoy watching this season.
Okay. I think we'll keep going down the table, shall we? I've got a feeling that Go Ahead Eagles could be another outside chance kind of team this season. But I don't know. They've spent a bit of money, like I said earlier, bringing in some players from around Europe. They've potentially got a new striker, Edvardsen, to add to other Edvardsen, both Scandinavian. They've did okay last season. I think they had some good technical players. They've kept them. They haven't left yet. For example, Bobby Adekanye hasn't left. Good attacking midfielder. So they're well equipped again. I'm not really the biggest fan of Rene Harker as a manager, but he did okay and surprised me. They lost the first 5 games, I think it was, Go Ahead Eagles last season. And then take that away, and then the rest of the season was pretty good. Pretty consistent as well, actually, because they didn't have bad periods of the season apart from those first 5 games. So it could be a team. I got them to finish the top half. A nice, stable mid-table team, surely.
Yeah, I've got them 13th, but I mean, as I said before, I think there's so small margins between these clubs around this area that you can't finish 13th or you can't finish 9th. There's got to be like 2 points in between it. And yeah, I think that Go Ahead Eagles have, I mean, they've got quite a big squad. Looking at it here, they've got quite a lot of players. They've got quite a lot of good quality attacking players, for a mid-table Eredivisie side. And Bobby Adekanye, I think, had the season of his life last year. I think he was one of these players that he was a wonder kid. It didn't work out. Then he was going to be a journeyman, it looked like. But he seems to be quite happy at Go Ahead Eagles. He's one of these players that easily could have left this summer to go to like Bulgaria or something like that. Then you never hear of him again until he comes back to another Eredivisie club in 3 years. But the fact that he's stayed, I think he'll be in for another good season. I think they've got good underrated Eredivisie players such as Lindenhorst, who came back. Williamson from midfield, I think he's really good in midfield, scores goals.
Yeah.
And yeah, these, Edvardsons that have coming in could be great. It could be a revelation that they've brought in, somebody that nobody really knew of, and then they score the goals that keep them in the league. So I think the players that they've lost, Lidberg did okay for them, but that's really, really it. I think that they're in for another steady season where they're not going to be troubled by relegation, and they could push on to the playoffs, might just finish below it. But that's the sort of side that Go Ahead Eagles are at the moment. They're I'm a comfortable mid-table side, and I'm quite happy with that. And I think that's what season they're in for.
And the fans will be happy with that too, given that they were in the second division for a little bit, coming back up from doing right in the Eredivisie, could be in a shout of getting the Conference League playoffs. That's what makes this league so competitive, those playoffs. It's nice to have that for teams to push on to. I think we'll talk about one more team that in a more positive light before we go into some teams that are in a bit more of a negative light. And that's Sparta Rotterdam. I don't think either of us think that it genuinely could be in any kind of relegation trouble, but I don't think they'll be quite as a surprise like last season. I don't think they'll be breaking into his top 6 or 7 for me. Jeroen Rijsdijk is now the manager of them. They did lose Maurice Stein, of course, to Ajax. Rijsdijk was sort of promoted because they couldn't get in the manager that they wanted. There were 2 or 3 names thrown around to come in, but they didn't. They turned the opportunity down. And Sparta have brought some players in. There's a few players that have been around the Eredivisie for a little while. It's just Bakari, Pelle Clement, Volendam. Then there's a few players I'm not too aware of. You might want to fill us in on those, Mike, because they look like they could be exciting ones. I know we have an American audience. There's an American player that's coming in. And they've not lost a great deal. Sambo going back to PSV, of course, is a notable one. Awasar experience, Pinto's experience, Myers experience, Namli in midfield, Dirk Arbels has gone. So they've had to kind of reinvent their defence. But I don't think in terms of the playing squad they've lost too much so far. Van Crooij is still there. Thought he might have gone. This seems to be a continuing theme. These players could go by September, but it would be good for the Eredivisie as a whole if these players can stay in the league. Because Sparta are a good team. And for me, I think they'll be mid-table this time. How about you, Mike?
So this is another caveat of, at the moment, I've got them at 8th. But by the end of the transfer window, I could easily drop them down to about 13th, depending on what happens. Because if they do lose Van Croy, who was outstanding for them last season, if they do lose Lauritsen, who was outstanding for them last season, and if they do lose Kitolano, who was outstanding for them last season, then it could all drop away. So the thing is with last year is that they seemed to hit the point where they had a good manager and they had a very good squad, and both things clicked and it worked, and they caused a lot of surprise to be from many touting them for a relegation battle to getting into European playoffs. And that's because of the goals of Lauritsen and Van Croy, because Saito on the wing was so exciting and getting goals. Nikolai in the goalkeeping slot, making save after save after save. Those players are all still there. They've added some good quality in there as well. And if the squad stays together, then yeah, they're good enough to reach the European playoffs and push on. But the manager's an unknown. There's still weeks left in the transfer window. You've got players like Van Croy who have said openly that they want to move on. So yeah, the squad could get pulled apart and then it could all fall apart. But if you're positive, it's not happened yet, so it could still stay there. You know, Ajax were sniffing around July, decided not to go for him. I think that's a mistake from Ajax's point of view. But you still got a top quality goalkeeper in there. The players that have signed, yeah, there's some players that have been around the Eredivisie, as you say. The American that signed from Almelo seems to be a exciting winger. Scored 7 goals for Almelo in Belgium. Had a spell on loan at Hajduk Split. Didn't score there, but seems to have a decent amount of quality from a winger for Sparta. But yeah, Django Warmerdam, reliable. Pele Clement, reliable. Sadbakari, reliable. So yeah, I think the signings they've made will keep them around the mid-table for me and keep them away from any sort of danger. But the main worry is that their clubs around or clubs in Europe, they're going to be sniffing around some of their best players. And I'm rather surprised it hasn't happened so far. I think if Ajax and AZ need a striker towards the end of the window, someone will pick up Lauritsen because he's done it in the league. So I can see that happening. And to be honest, I'm kind of surprised that somebody's not taking a punt on Van Croy, like maybe FC Twente, if you need a winger to replace Vaclav Černý. There he is. So yeah, we'll see. There's still weeks to go and it could happen. But at the moment, Sparta always had a good academy, got good players at the moment. I've still got them in 8th, but that could change.
And a lovely club as well. And I'm sure they'll be happy with the mid-table season. It's another good achievement for them with all the changes that could happen. Let's change our sort of outlook on the league now. Who could be in trouble? And who better to start with than little Almere City? I don't think any Almere fans, first of all, listening, but if they are, welcome. I don't think they're going to be too kind of surprised by us saying this and us calling them a little club. They do have the smallest stadium in the league alongside Excelsior. That's how small this club is. But a lovely kind of small city in the Netherlands has come to the Eredivisie. I think the Eredivisie ultras, the real fans here that might be listening, might recognise them as FC Omniworld from goodness knows how many years ago now, about 20 years ago. They were a thing. But that's who Almere kind of are. Almere themselves have never been in the Eredivisie, but their previous kind of entities have been. They have picked up PEC Miners on loan from RZ. Cheryl Floranus has come back to the Eredivisie as a right back. And Robinet is a French striker, another one from the French third league. 26 years old, coming in. Can he score some goals? We'll see. Not lost on any players really. The thing for me that made me think I don't think they'll stay up is that Alex Pastor's the manager. He's gotten them up, but I've never really been a fan of Pastor. That's how much the league for a good decade at least. He's never really impressed me. I don't think he's got the magic that some of these other managers have had since they've come up to a league. And for example, Wim Jonk, outstanding manager last season, and getting them promoted as well, Volendam. But Pastor at Almere, don't see it happening. I don't think they'll be the whipping boys like we said last season of Volendam, because we did both predict that. But I do think Almere finished bottom. You do too, Mike. So you obviously got very amazed by what is coming up here.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the squad, and there is some names that you've heard of from past years in Eredivisie. You've got Floranus in there. You've got PEC Miners, who did okay last season. Excelsior didn't do anything while I was on there. You've got Anthony Limbomb, and then you've got Rajiv Vanapara on the wing. Rajiv Vanapara being sort of like a cult hero for Almere City in the second division. You help them get them up, but I can't see them having the goals, up front. Yeah, Robinette from French Third Division. They've got Jerdy Hilterman, who is a player that played for years at just second string of Utrecht. So yeah, I think the days of having an Eredivisie whipping boy that you beat 12-13-0 are gone. But I just can't see Almere City having this sort of campaign that keeps them up. I think they're a surprise promotion, and yeah, I don't think there'll be a surprise relegation. So I think the teams above them just have too much quality for them. And while I don't think they'll embarrass themselves, I don't think they'll stay up. I don't think they'll have enough. Whereas I think that the other two promoted sides that know the league well and have been there before do have enough. I just think Almere City don't have that quality edge to really cause an impact in the league. Could be totally wrong. It might end up finishing 13th, but yeah, at the moment, I just can't see it.
Yeah, I agree because of the reasons you said. And let's talk about Heracles and PEC Zwolle. Funny enough, we both put them 14th, 15th. Let's start with PEC Zwolle. Johnny Jansen is a manager. They've brought in a bunch of players. I won't list them all, but the ones that stood out to me were Shibora, who was class at left back for Heracles in the past. He's coming on loan from Italy. Delauth, who was a former RZ second choice striker, he's coming on loan as well. Thomas Lamb has come back to the club. He had a little spell in Australia, but I think he's a good centre back for this level. Vermeer, probably the biggest one of them all, the goalkeeper. He used to play for Ajax and Feyenoord, 37, but I'm sure as a goalkeeper at that age, he's still got it. And a few players around that as well. Yunus Lamy, McNulty, who's done it with Knack Breda. But they did lose, of course, a good number of young players. They lost Balen and Van der Belts to Feyenoord, Taha to Twente, Van den Berg to Middlesbrough. So they've lost like young talent and really good young talent. They were like key players for the club and brought in lots of experience. People that done it in the Eredivisie before. But I think they'll be all right. They have enough. Having seen teams come up in the Eredivisie in the past, they've got lots of like unknown quantities. I think we know what we get with PEC Zwolle, that they'll be okay. They will have times in the season they struggle. I'm sure they'll probably go to Feyenoord or Ajax or lose quite heavily at one point. But on the whole, they'll be okay.
Yeah, I think they've got enough about the squad. I mean, they've brought in Kenneth Vermeer, and they've got Schendelar, who's Netherlands under 21 national goalkeeper, so he's highly thought of. So it might not even displace him, but it's good to have that backup option who's got the experience. But as you say, Jabora I think is an excellent signing for a team that's just come up. Drift will score goals. Then there's a couple of young players that have come in. You've got Burmeister on loan from AZ, who has a good reputation for the second string, and you've got Villanis, who never really made it Utrecht, but has always been around second string at Utrecht and has always made a good impression in the second division. So he's getting a chance, should he can do it in Eredivisie. And a couple of years ago, there was articles going out about the best youngsters to watch in Eredivisie. One year it was all about Davy van den Berg, who was at Utrecht at the time. And then he got a really bad injury a couple of games into the season. And then that was it. You never really heard of him again. But then he went down second division. He's been playing with PEC Zwolle last year. He's back in Eredivisie with PEC Zwolle again this year. I'm excited to see what he can do in the top flight. So I think they have enough quality around there. You've still got Ryan Thomas in there, come back from his injuries. Thomas Lamb, we know him from previous years. Bram van Polen still being there as captain. So yeah, there's a lot of players here that you know and they're reliable. I think they have enough to finish comfortably mid-table. I've got them in 14th, but even if they finished higher, 13th, 11th, 12th, I wouldn't be surprised. So yeah, I think they've got enough to keep them up.
Yeah, solid. And I think just a notch below that, I've got them in this kind of bottom four in my head anyway. Is Heracles. I think they'll have just enough to stay up because they have, Getcher Willems turning into a bit of a journeyman now, isn't he? But he's come in. Left back, got Engels, who did some stuff at one point in the Eredivisie. The lovely names Jizz Hornkamp has come in from Willem II to show that he's great striker in Eredivisie. Honestly, I was rolling my eyes like, oh great, we've got that name coming back to our league.
Yeah.
Plus a couple more, they look okay actually, Heracles, and like you said, good to have two middle-sized Eredivisie clubs come back into the league, having had some quite small clubs in. That boosts the league as a whole. What are you thinking for this team?
Yeah, I've got them just outside the bottom three at 15th. I'm not as excited about them as I am about watching PEC Zwolle, but yeah, I mean, Emil Hansen scored a lot of goals in the second division last year, but he's never really done it in the top division. Maybe this will be his year to show that he can handle the level. Say Hornkamp's there, always good for a couple of goals and a laugh. The defense, Justin Hugma's there. I mean, Justin Hugma was a good quality Eredivisie defender for a few years until he got injured, and then you got Willems in there for a bit of leadership. Marko Vujinovic is still there in midfield. I think it's a good all-round squad that's got some experience, some mid-table quality in there, but not enough to really boost it past, lower mid-table. So I think, you're looking at, for me, 15th, but if they finished 13th, wouldn't be surprised. I'm just glad that they're back in the league, and I hope they don't revert to the old ways of signing players from third divisions in Germany and in Portugal and not have enough quality to play. So I hope they learned their lesson from going down, and we start seeing a club with a bit more ambition to take it to that next level, and then we could see them competing again for a top half finish.
Yeah, because that's where they went wrong, wasn't it? They couldn't compete for those finishes anymore because they kept picking up the wrong players all the time. So I wanted to come back a little bit to this table prediction because we've just gone through each of the three promoted teams that have come up this season. And looking at the table we predicted, I've gone with RKC Waalwijk being in big trouble this season and finishing the bottom two. And you've gone with Excelsior. Let's talk about Excelsior first, Mike. Why did you go for them to be 17th?
Again, I made the same mistake with Utrecht. Every single year I go, this is their year to challenge. With Excelsior, I'm always like, this is their year to go down. And they always pull off a surprise and they ended up staying up. But I think that they stayed up last year because they had good players such as Goodmine in midfield. They had Zarkan up front. Those two are now gone. And when I look at the players that they've brought in, I don't see the same quality that they're bringing in on loan. So you've got Hartjes from Feyenoord. You've got Anita from Feyenoord. Kik Perry's back from Ajax to play centre back. Then Zagreb from Monaco didn't really do much at Utrecht when he was loaned to them. Then you got a couple of unknowns from Sweden. So I don't think they've really added enough quality to the squad. Dijkhuysen's a good manager. He's got a good reputation, even though he messed up when he went to England. But he's a good Eredivisie manager. But I think this year, the clubs above them just have a bit more. I don't know who's going to be the really creative spark for them on the wing. I think they could do with maybe asking Feyenoord for another couple of players. If you could maybe get some of their youngsters that aren't going to play first team football this year. If you get somebody like Malambo, that'd be incredible.
Yeah,
since he doesn't seem to be like on the cusp of them. If they can get Slory for the wing, then I'd be a lot more excited about watching them. But looking at the squad at the moment, I'm looking at it and I'm like, where's the goals? Where's the defensive solidity? You've still got Mike Van Duyn in there.
Hmm.
Yongo, Drake up front. Yeah.
You see, I can see why you've thought that. Isaac can't go into big one, but it's up to these new signings. I think the fact the clubs looked and widen their scouting to get these players. I do actually rate Leonard Harchi as midfielder. But yeah, the goals, do these young players come in and do they do something? Doing a little bit of digging for them online. I'm not like amazed by them. I'm not like blown away, but I think that they'll add something a bit different to the league. Their new centre back, a new winger, and I think the couple of final loanies will impress. Period coming back's good, and that's why I've kind of got them out just sort of within the relegation picture, but not quite. 13th for me. I'm more confident about them than you are, but on the other hand, I'm not confident at all about RKC Waalwijk, and you are kind of putting them more in a mid-table picture. And a bit of a disclaimer to that, we've kind of said that we wouldn't be surprised if teams are a bit higher or lower than what we said they are. But RKC brought in some journeyman players. Henk Fraser's a manager, and he's had some good times in his career, some lesser times, and him losing his brag at Utrecht, hitting Amran Younes wasn't a good look. I don't know how much of an impact he's had with the national team. Not sure there. But then bringing in Rumato, Jeffrey Brumer, Aaron Myers, Cleonisa, for me, that's not doing a lot. When they've lost the likes of Bel Hassani, I've really rated him as a creative spark. Vananita is a massive one going midfield. Matt Searchins was their goals. Part of what he created with Mikhail Kramer with the creative outlet of that team. Losing Clement, losing Bakari, a couple of players around that go also played a lot. They lost. Well, I can count here, good about 10 players, and replaced them with journeymen. I don't know what gives you that sense of security. Then perhaps being mid-table. Is it because of Henk Fraser? Do you rate him perhaps a little more highly than me?
I think he's a good Eredivisie coach. I don't think he's great. I think he's one of these people that usually fails upward. And this is now probably one of his last chances to prove that he can do it in the Eredivisie. The reason I've got kind of RKC finishing higher than you is I think that they've got goals from Michael Kramer. I think every year we expect him not to do it, but I think he still scores goals in this league. And I think that you have him up front.
It's great.
Yeah. And it's just he's guaranteed at least 10 goals a season. I think he's guaranteed at least 10, and he's got to be one that keeps him up. I think they've got good players. I think that there is a few out there that are decent. I think Zachary Bakali, obviously didn't work out from after PSV, but he's got his moments, and he showed moments last year. You've got Jeffrey Brumer coming into centre back position. Yes, he's aging. Yes, he became a bit of a journeyman, but he's leader. He's leader at the back. He takes over from Werner Anita as that sort of one that's had the experience of going abroad and playing in the biggest leagues, and he comes back to play something like RKC. I think he can do all right there. Then you look at some of the young players who got up front. Cleonise, I thought showed decent things for Twente. Doesn't score enough goals for a winger, but maybe RKC's his level. And then Patrick Vro in midfield. Players like Roy Kuipers, I think they're all decent Eredivisie players. So I think that they've got enough to keep them mid-table. And I think that because they've got somebody like Mikkel Kramer, if Mikkel Kramer wasn't there, I'd be saying RKC to get relegated. But I think he is their edge in this league. And he's the one that will come up, because if you put RKC against Excelsior and Almere City, Heracles, these games are going to finish 1-0, 2-1. It's going to be scrappy, and then having somebody like Michael Kramer in there, I think gives them an edge, and I think he'll be the one that does it for them. So it's all on his shoulders. If he leaves, then they're screwed.
This is a guy that was caught on camera having a burger, wasn't he? Whatever it was.
I mean,
like half time once.
Man of the people. That's what it is. Man of the people.
Let's go into Volendam. They've lost Wim Jonk, his manager. He's gone to this kind of like elevated role within the club, being like a technical director, which is, a bizarre move for his career, but I suspect he just didn't quite fancy the management side of it anymore. I don't know, but I thought it was great, and his career was going in an upward direction. He could have been final head coach at one point. It was rumored. They lost Stankovic, the goalkeeper, but brought in 19-year-old Backhouse, and he looks okay actually. I haven't caught bits of him in pre-season. Part of me was really worried about Volendam. Matthias Köhler's taken over. He was like the assistant manager before. And I do think they will be in relegation trouble again. And them staying up again is magnificent for the club. But they've got no way of kicking on. The thing for me that's stopping from putting them in a bottom two and, them finishing 16th is because I think one or two young players might come out of the woodwork and really impress. And Boyamba is probably their best player now as a defender, but he could still move on. But if he stays, that's a great help. They have enough in some parts of the pitch, but I don't know where the goals are going to come from really now. Not sure. But I think they'll scrap their way. I think they'll just about stay up, or the playoffs might see them go down. I don't feel very confident about this prediction, but because they could finish bottom and be humiliated, given they've lost a really good manager, and there's no way of them kicking on with no real transfers coming in. Carrot Eiting, again, just comes to my head now, another one who could leave in midfield. Or if they're reborn with some new young players and Köhler is assistant manager before it is better than Bjorn. Maybe with the brains behind the whole thing. I don't know. But yeah, what would you think about them, Mike?
Yeah, I've got them bottom three, and again, that's based on what they are now, and that's with Carl Eiting and Buyamba in the squad. But yeah, I was like, Eiting could even take them to Tribunal to try and get a move away. So it looks like he might be going to Twente, and Buyamba's getting linked to Sampdoria. But I think Mbayamba's good enough to play, top half, top five Eredivisie. So I'm surprised that a lot more clubs aren't in for him. It surprised me that it was only a couple of weeks ago I found out that he was even permanently at Volendam. I thought it was a loan from Chelsea, but that was permanent. So I mean, that was surprising to me because I think he's got a lot more quality in his game, and he actually popped up with quite a few goals last season for them as well. So I think he'll be a big miss. I think it'll be a big miss. And then who do you replace him with? Current squad wise, there's not really anyone that quality, so they have to go out and buy somebody. They've only bought 2 players this summer, so that's a worry. But as you say, the Volendam have sort of relied on their academy over the past few years, and yeah, they've got Billy Van Doyle, young defender who's playing last season when he was 16. They got Zifuik up front, young striker who was it Ajax he scored against when he came on as a sub. I think it was Ajax.
I think you're right. Yeah,
he's a big brute of a striker, and I think that if he gets more game time, then development for him, he could be the next one that comes in. But yeah, they're a very mix of very young talents that are very unproven, and some older players like old sheiks there, Van Meigem, Robert Muren. I mean, yeah, it's one extreme or the other really with Volendam, really young or really old, and yeah, I think that they're a couple of players away from finishing possibly even bottom, but we'll see. I think it's a big blow for them to lose Yonk. If half the squad leaves as well, then yeah, I think they're in big trouble.
Yeah, could be in trouble indeed. They've got 2 more teams to go. So if you're still listening to this podcast at this point, you must really love the Eredivisie. And we thank you for supporting us. Make sure you've liked this podcast wherever you're listening to it. And subscribe if you're new to Football-Oranje. So we have Fortuna Sittard and Heerenveen to go. Let's go with Heerenveen first. And I had the pleasure of watching them in a pre-season friendly that Huddersfield the other day. And I'll tell you what, they are really good technically, this team. But they just need some new players. And at the minute, they have not come in. But if Heerenveen go and scout a couple of extra players that really kick them on, you could be talking about a team that could finish at least top half, playoffs, maybe even break into this 7th, 6th position because they have potential. Like I said, technically gifted. Saroui is a great attacking midfielder or winger. I think that they've got some good experience. They've got a couple of players that would kind of like to move on, but they're still sticking around. I mean, Tom Hyer, midfield, could play in England. You've got Boknevitz, centre-back, experienced. For me, one of the best defenders in the Eredivisie outside the top 4 or 5. Then you've got, obviously, Andries Noppert, the goalkeeper for the Dutch national team as well. He on his day is one of the best Eredivisie goalkeepers. They haven't lost a lot. I mean, Van Ewijk was a big one going to Coventry, but it's given him a few millions, I think, to go and spend now. Sidney van Hooijdonk, he has gone, but I think he can be replaced with his goals, and they've gone for this Moldovan striker, haven't they, who's signed from an Israeli team, and he could be good for goals in the Eredivisie. I think he could be enough. And a few bit part players around that. I think replacing Van Ewijk will be important because Heerenveen love using their wing backs to get forward a lot. Kohlert's good on the left. On the right, it could be Hussein Ali or Denzel Hall who's come in at right back. And I think the only other thing after that is, will Charlie Webster be good on loan from Chelsea? I hear good things about him, that he could really start the season a bit quietly and then he might come in halfway through and really kind of nail down a starting place because he looks technically very good pass of the ball. Yeah, I mean, at the minute, if they lose a couple of players due down to injury, then Heerenveen will struggle. But I think really they'll be all right. And they'll be okay mid-table. Kees van Vondelen is also a very good manager.
Yeah, I think that's the main strength is Heerenveen side is the fact that they've got a good manager in there.
Yeah.
Van Wonderen, who has the ability to be the next one. You know, when a top 4 side needs a new head coach, and if they're looking around Eredivisie, then Van Wonderen's name is, you know, the obvious one to give a chance to. He had the reputation as being defensively minded, but you know, it's not a bad thing in Eredivisie, and it gets you places if you do it well. So my worry is that they've not done as much on the transfer market as I would have liked them to push them on to the next level. I think 2 free signings so far, but yeah, they're probably waiting for that Van Ewijk money to use that. And now that he's actually gone, they can probably bring in another couple before the transfer window shuts. But as you say, you've still got players like, you know, Tom Hay, who probably too good for his side. You got Noppert still there, even though he keeps saying he wants to move. There's nobody that's, you know, hit that button yet to bring him in. And yeah, I think that I've got him in 10th. I think that's, you know, squad wise at the moment, you know, Sarui is the most exciting player in this side by far. Shane Anoy's done okay. But yeah, like they're 2 to 3 players short, I think, of being a shoe-in for the playoffs. And I think it's a shame because Heerenveen's a club that I would love just one year just to go all out and try and make the playoffs, try and make Europe again. Because when I was growing up, you know, I saw Heerenveen in Europe. I saw them play Newcastle when they had Huntelaar up front. And they're a club that should be challenging for Europe and not just constantly happy with mid-table. It seems that every year it's just the same. They get to the Eredivisie playoffs, or they finish outside of it. They don't really kick on. They get one really good player, he leaves, and then the squad sort of just goes down. They just need somebody with a bit of ambition to come in and just spend a bit of money, bring in a couple, 2, 3, 4 more players, add a bit of quality, and then take them to the level of like a Utrecht, because that's where they deserve to be. They're just not reaching what their potential is, and I think it's a shame because it's a club that I think a lot of people want to do well. I think a lot of people like their kit, and like the aura of the club, and I think they've got a manager that can take them to the next level. It's just that he's not really got the squad to do it.
Yeah, we still have a month to go in this transfer window. You never know who could come in still. But yeah, on the whole, it's again another season of recuperating from last season, probably finishing towards the playoffs and then probably taking a step back again, unless we're proven wrong. So last team is Fortuna Sittard. Danny Bowles has come in as manager. He's, I think, all right for this sort of part of the Eredivisie table. I think he'll keep them out of Eredivisie relegation trouble, but only just. I think there might be times where they struggle a little bit. But getting Pandor, the goalkeeper, permanently is a good move. I won't go for all the players they signed this summer, but House coming in, I still don't rate him, even as an Eredivisie striker. I don't think he scores enough goals. Mitchell Dykes has come in, needs to lose some weight first, I've heard, but he could be good when he's fit. Halilovic has played in Eredivisie before. Outgoings, George Cox, our Englishman, has gone. Very sadly, he could be about to get a contract in England, but he's struggling to get one. You've got Yilmaz, who didn't work out for him, did it? Gosh, that was a story this time last year, but then that all kind of went to pot. Losing Erdogan in midfield, a few others. There's some players that have come in that are kind of the same levels of players that have gone out, kind of much for muchness. But Danny Bowles coming in, I think, will have a bit of an impact on it, but he's not going to push him into the top half for me with Fortuna. Anything more to add on that?
No, I think that, it was quite exciting last year to think that they would push on and be like, oh, Bart Yilmaz is there. Yeah. They're going to be challenging for a European playoff spot. And it didn't happen. And I mean, it's a shame for George Cox, because I think he consistently over the past 2-3 years, I think he's been up there to say that he's been Fortuna Sittard's best player. So, I mean, I think he could do a job for another Eredivisie club if you want to come back to the Netherlands, and you do a good job here. But the players that have signed, Marcelo, has never really worked out when he's been at Twente or PSV. As I say, Dykes coming to twilight of his career, not really worked out the past few years. If he's not turning out fit, then it's not very helpful. Then you got Sierrahouse, constantly injured, didn't make it in France. Had a loan spell with Heracles that went okay until he got injured. So point to prove. But Alan Halilovic, that's your typical journeyman from Barcelona wonder kid to absolutely nothing to showing up at Heerenveen now. Can they get the best out of him? I'm not Heerenveen, Fortuna Sittard. Can they get the best out of him? Probably not. So I think you're looking at another mid-table. I've got them in 12th. Probably the best they can do. You still have some decent Eredivisie players in there, like Paul Gladden's always good for a off-the-bench goal here and there. But if they get 2 or 3 injuries to key players, then you see them falling right down the league. So, I'm not getting excited about watching them this season anyway.
Well, that's probably what we talked about them last. We talked about each and every team there, Mike, and we have not missed anybody out. But a bump Eredivisie season preview, but not quite over yet, Mike, because I would love to know who you think will be the top goal scorer in the league this season. Who are the contenders? Because Jimenez is mine, but I am sure there will be a few more that will be up there. I don't think it's going to be cut and dry 30 goals to Jimenez. I think we're looking at 2025 again. Yeah,
I think last year was probably the worst Eredivisie on record for years in terms of striker scoring goals when you have Xavi Simons finishing joint top goal scorer. I think the striker union sort of let themselves down last year. Will it be better this year? You're looking at the top teams at the moment. You got Luke de Jong starter for PSV, Brian Brobby starter for Ajax. AZ Pavlidis could still be there.
Or Gouda for Twente?
Not so far on what I've seen from him in the first 2 games.
Fair enough.
Kramer? No.
But it could be one of these new players comes in. It could be that Heerenveen, this new striker, comes in and scores goals. It could be that Ogawa, NEC, pulls it out of nowhere. We saw it happen in Belgium with Ayeze Ueda, who's now come at Feyenoord.
You could have Duvakas as well if he stays and pushes on for another season.
Exactly,
he could do it again. Vitesse have 2 new strikers. Could be one of them. Could be an absolute machine.
Yeah,
Halilovic maybe. Sparta, Lauritsen still there. Could push on, but I think if you're a betting man, your smart money's on Jimenez.
Yeah,
but Ueda depends. They spend a lot of money on him. He's not just going to be sitting on the bench for the whole season, so it's going to be a good battle there. And, in the next 4 weeks, Ajax need to sign a striker, so maybe they'll bring in somebody that's got a bit more of a clinical finish in front of goal, shall we say, than Brian Brobby. So at the moment it's Jimenez all the way for me.
Any flops? I love this term. especially comes to Eredivisie, or seems to be a question that we ask: who will the flops be?
I think in terms of players, good question. I think that Borges.
I think Brian Brobby's up there again because I'm really. Do you? Wow.
If for the money they've spent on him, for the money that they've spent on somebody that hasn't played a single senior game in their career so far, and paying upward of nearly 20 million for him, he could be the best thing that's ever happened, or he could be another Darami. So we'll wait and see on that one. But in terms of just players in the league, not new signings, yeah, I think Brian Brobby is another one. Kenneth Taylor is one you could say could be a massive flop. In terms of other ones, I hate to say it because I love him and I think I really want him to do well. If Calvin Stengs doesn't get off to a good start, he could go into that category if he doesn't perform well. But I think he will. In terms of other clubs,
how about managers? Do you think Peter Bosz could be really successful, Peter? Because I think people on the outside of the Eredivisie would look at him and say he's going to flop again.
No, I think he's got a squad there that can push on. Because I think that he's got the right characters around. I think that PSV are in for a really good season. I think they'll be right up there. I think that I just got this feeling about Noah Lang. I think he's in for something special this year. I think he's going to tear the league apart for me. But that's my prediction on Noah Lang. I think he's in for a bumper year. If it's managers, you're looking at Stein and Oosting, I think, to be the ones that there's pressure on straight away. Silberbauer as well. I think that those three are the ones that I'd worry for their jobs if it doesn't go well straight away. I think the Morris Stein's the one that goes into the season with the most pressure on his shoulders. So yeah, I feel for him because he did really well last season, and he's walked into a powder keg that could go off at any moment. So I hope he does well. I hope Ajax prove me wrong, and all the players that they've signed are absolute masterstrokes by Mislintat, who's an absolute genius. But we'll wait and see.
And you mentioned young players earlier. Who are the ones that are going to break through? And that's quite a big question because we can't scan every team again. But I know there's a couple of the tests. You mentioned them, Manhoef and Tillemans, and that would be my 11 of players I think could do something really special this season, have good campaigns. But are there any more that you think are worth talking about?
I think it's hard because when you're talking about young players, you gravitate mostly towards the top four who have the best academies. But Xavi Welstra, Heerenveen's one. He scored a couple of goals in the early pre-season. I think he looks like a good technical midfielder for them. Good young midfielder coming through. Billy Van Doyle, Zefuk up front. Could be nice ones to watch. Sante Hansen at NEC. Let's hope he has a breakthrough year. Going up the table, I think Ajax Hato is the main one. It's the obvious one. Then, other than that, Moambo at Feyenoord, I really want to see him get a chance, but they've basically signed too many midfielders for me to think that he will consistently get a game. I think there's even talking on today about going on loan to Willem II. I'd rather see him on loan in the Eredivisie than drop down a division. They're really excited about Leo Sur, the winger at Feyenoord, young winger. We'll see if he can do anything. And we saw him today. Babadi at PSV, I think that he's got a huge future, and I think that replacing Xavi Simons isn't going to be easy, but Babadi's one of the names that could slot in there. And Sharandi Sambo as well. I think Sharandi Sambo had an excellent season for Sparta last year. He's gone back to PSV, and he could be one to watch. But there's so many. I'm going to do an article of all the ones that you need to watch because Ajax have 3-4 that could be there if they remain fit. AZ have Poku, Meerdink, Van Bommel, Adai, Ghost in defence. They have a couple of midfielders as well. Smith coming through. And there's others that at AZ as well. They obviously won the Youth League last year. PSV won the Under-21 tournament that had all the English teams in it. So you got Jason Van Duiven there as well. got Fode Fofana, who's finally fit again. Yeah, there's loads that are thereabouts. But at the moment, there's not anyone that I'm saying he's going to break straight into one of the top 4's first teams and be a starter, except for maybe Hato and Babadi. But the rest of them seem to be at the periphery at the moment. And actually, Yunus Minte, the Newcastle winger, because I'm a Newcastle fan, I'm intrigued to see what he can do at Feyenoord.
Wow.
He's quite tricky. But
well, you say that, but I wasn't very impressed with him this watching in the Johan Cruijffschaal.
Yeah, he came on. He's a bit of a. At times, he looks like all pace and not much product. But from the preseason friendly, when he first came on in his first preseason friendly, he looked rapid. He'll take a bag of tricks, but whether you can actually have some end product to him, we'll wait and see what he can bring. But he played for the middle. I thought coming on for Jimenez was a weird place when he should be playing on the wing. And maybe it's just because the radar's not there yet, but we'll see what he can bring for the rest of the season.
Okay. Before I ask you about any other business, Mike, I also want to ask, who do you think will go furthest in Europe this season? Just to remind people listening, you've got Feyenoord in the group stage of Champions League. PSV could qualify for that too, or the Europa League. Ajax, Europa League, Conference League. Then you've got RZ and Twente, who could be qualifying for the Conference League group stages. We'll see. But who do you think will go the furthest out of those 5?
Ajax, because they'll drop into the Conference League.
Yeah, I think so too. That's where my gut is. I think Ajax. I think AZ don't quite go as far as last time. PSV will do what they always do. Muddle about in the Europa League. Probably get knocked out in the last stages of those competitions. And final probably get to the Champions League last 16. But then I don't think they go much further than that.
Yeah, I can see Feyenoord dropping into Europa League is not the worst thing if you finish third in a group. But yeah, I think it'll cause a surprise. I think they can at the Kuip, they can take on anyone and give them a good game. So I think there'll be some good results in the Champions League, but whether they have enough quality to actually go far in the competition, I'm dubious. But I think that Arne Slot in the Champions League group stages getting a chance to prove himself. I think his reputation will be exploding after the season.
Any other business then, Mike? Anything else you want to talk about?
No, in terms of Eredivisie, that's really it. I mean, we've got another month until we need to talk about the Netherlands again. I'm sure we'll be the conversations around that, and there's loads of transfers around where our players going around Europe. But yeah, I'm sure we'll get into that next time there's the Netherlands squad and we talk about some of the players that have been on the move.
Absolutely. So that's more for our viewers and listeners to look forward to. Lots more podcasts coming up. So stay tuned for such stuff on the national team. But also, lots to come on the Eredivisie as well this season. We will be talking about the league, of course, ups and downs of that. Lots of teams within that. But we hope you enjoyed listening to where we just talk about every single team. That's why this is so long, because there's not always that time in our regular podcasts to sort of pig out and just talk about this league, because it's a fantastic league. And I think it will grow even more this season. It's been really encouraging to see lots of teams holding on to their good players. It's going to strengthen them. And I think we'll be talking about this league getting even stronger again come the end of this season coming. Mike, thanks so much for doing this. And thanks everyone for listening, watching. Give us a like wherever you're listening. And subscribe to us and find our website, find the social media platforms, and stick with us throughout the season. Hope you enjoyed. And thank you very much. I think it's time for us to go have a little sleep now.